Okay, here we are. It is the day 49 days of CBC, and today we're excited to have Mr. Joseph Hodge, who was a camper. Now he's staff member, and now he's been persuaded to be on the board with us. And it's such a pleasure to have you with us. And we thank you so much for the efforts that you give to the campers during week 2 when you work that week, and also with the efforts with communications and everything that you do for the board. It's been a pleasure working with you on that aspect. I've never worked with you week 2, but I've talked to you a bunch and stuff like that. So it's good to
Yeah.
spend a few minutes talking to you about Carolina Bible Camp. So I guess the first thing is, here it is, first day of week 2. What's it feel like not being there?
Um, well, first off, I don't have a vacation from work right now because of that. So
Oh,
I would kind of look forward to that. But also just, seeing everyone that's the time that, I'm thinking about Ray and Johnny, and just those reunions every year are so much fun when you get to camp, because I think a lot of the kids come to camp and they think, oh, well, this is all for us and it's, so much fun for us. And that's great. That's true. But it's a great time for the staff as well. And so I'm definitely missing that right now.
well, you would probably agree with me when you say that or I say that your spiritual growth goes way up during camp because
Yeah,
you're being
definitely.
pushed.
Yeah, because you see the growth in people from the time that you left them at camp last year to when they arrive. It's so apparent because you haven't seen each other likely for a whole year. And that's what's so great about camp, because then you can bounce ideas off of each other, talk about how your lives are going, and really see that growth. That growth is so apparent when you haven't been around each other for a while. And so that's really great, something I really love about it.
Oh, cool. Well, I guess the first question I want to ask you is, how old were you when you first started going to Carolina Bible Camp?
So I was a little late to the party. I was 13 when I first went to CBC. And I remember my first year I went, I actually didn't like it that much. Had kind of a rough time. But then the next year came around and my mom was like, oh, so you're going again? And I was like, yeah, I'm going to go again. And so that second year that I went to camp was just like the best week ever to that point in my life. And I've been hooked ever since.
So, how many summers is that now?
So I am 25, so 13, 14, like four. It's a little tough because there's like some overlap, like 14 or so. It's hard to do math on Zoom,
Yeah,
but
pressure.
there's there's a lot of winter camps thrown in there too,
Oh, that's
and
right.
a lot of double ups of
Yeah,
weeks. So I went to sixth week a lot too.
right.
So I counted it up one time how much I've been at camp, but I can't remember right now. Yeah,
Well, you're the same age as my oldest daughter, then, 25, right?
yeah,
Yeah, yeah. She started when she was 3, going as a pre-camper.
yeah, yeah. That was the experience of a lot of people at camp, and I was kind of bummed at first. I was like, I'm kind of late to this, but with the way the community is, at least at second and sixth week, it was so easy to just ingrain immediately.
Yeah,
And I remember kids, they would have their first week of camp when they were like 17 or something.
right.
And sometimes they were the most impactful campers because they jumped right in, and it was just incredible to see how how easy it was for them to fit in with the whole group, no matter what week it was. And that was something that was really special about camp growing up, because I've been to other camps, and usually there's a nucleus there that's really hard to break into.
Yeah.
And of course there are cliques anywhere you go, but CBC was just so inviting every time.
Well, I guess the next question I'll ask you is, well, what keeps you coming back? I know as a camper, of seeing friends and everything, but now as an adult staff member, and you've been there a number of years as staff, what keeps you coming back?
um, I do think the biggest thing is, you know getting that recharge that a lot of people talk about. I think now in the age of, work email and cell phones constantly being by you, that kind of separation from technology is really important, both spiritually and just mentally. I think seeing the kids grow up is great. There are quite a few kids that I've seen pretty much every summer that they've been to camp up until this point. Seeing that growth is great. I think about Justin Allgood. I've been on his basketball team at week 2, and every year, it's just, he was much shorter than me, then he was getting close to my height, and then he was much taller than me. And spiritually too, you see that in them, the way they grow up and they mature. That's just really special. And then just, seeing friends and stuff like that. Now the priorities are changing because I'm a father now. Now it's going to be, a lot of it's going to be about her experience at camp, bringing her back to camp. That's always going to tether me to camp.
Right. Yeah. Were you going to have her as a pre-camper this year?
We were. It was going to be kind of tough having an 8-month-old at camp in the summer heat, but we were prepared. We had the equipment. We had our game plan somewhat set out. And of course, the staff is so supportive at week 2 with pre-campers. I think we had pre-campers were probably 30% of our total population at camp last year. It was just ridiculous how many we had. So that would have been really special for her. Say that again?
I said, get them in there when they're young. Get them in there.
Yeah. We're looking forward to it. Hopefully, fingers crossed, everything goes well next year. That'll be her first year, and she'll be at that point where she can really jump in and maybe do a few things.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see. So out of all the years that you've been going to Carolina Bible Camp, is there a favorite memory that you have that you could share with us?
I'll say in general, there are a few moments, I think, in a person's life that just completely redirects the trajectory. And, a lot of your beliefs and a lot of who you are kind of hinge on those moments. And I think it was the second or third year I went to week 6 Carolina Bible Camp. I think it was themed 2, I think. It was one or another. I can't remember exactly, but it was the first year that we did the service projects. And that whole week was the most incredible week of camp I've ever been to. It was absolutely amazing. I learned so much every day. The classes were phenomenal. It was like how to do camp right. And it was innovative too, because we had the service projects, which took so much work from the staff members. Talk about getting a bus, getting the waivers done, finding service projects out in the community that we could go to, taking kids off campus, debriefing with them afterwards about, the importance of it, what it meant to be there to help the community. And as you know, Moxville and Coolamy, some of those communities have pretty high poverty rates. And so the service projects we did, we could see a meaningful difference that we were making and the hours that we were putting in and the money that we were putting in. So that was just so special. It was super fun week too. And a lot of my best friendships still go back to that week.
Well, imagine the impact it had on those young folks as they were doing those service projects,
Yeah, because it was putting it into action. We would, I remember especially Sean Castile and Brandon Maxwell taking us to the sites, and just their explanations of why we were doing what we were doing. For me as a kid, I grew up wanting nothing. I was very privileged, and I would go to these service projects and I would see just how different things were for some people, the way that they would live. And that was, so it changed me forever. That was the starting point, my real spiritual growth, I thought. So that was super special.
Powerful learning experience, huh?
Yeah.
Well, if you had a kid that was going to be his first time coming to Carolina Bible Camp, what would you tell him?
I would say, it can be kind of intimidating, especially if they haven't gone to a camp before. And this is so much easier said than done, but just be yourself and,
Yeah.
sit and listen and try to be open to learning. Please pay attention. That's so annoying sometimes when some of these kids, by the second day they get it.
Yeah.
But it takes a little while to start listening. So listen, be ready to learn, slow to speak, and you'll have a great time. Find a couple of pals to team up with, and just branch your friend network out from there.
Mm-hmm.
I remember my second year coming to camp is when I met Seth Garcia, who this is how powerful the connections at camp are. Seth was in my cabin. We hadn't met before, and we decided to room together just on happenstance. And all this time later, we're still best friends. I was in his wedding. He was my best man. We live 15 minutes away from each other, and we're probably, hopefully, going to stay together in the Raleigh area, and our kids can grow up together going to camp.
Oh,
that's the dream. That's how powerful these connections are. So really, really take charge of the moment and try to make the connections that you can.
That's pretty neat. Yeah, my wife, she grew up going. She started when she was 8 or 9 years old, and so she talks about Sherry being her counselor for week 6.
Yeah.
Hunter and Jeff Sykes, and all those people, and just the relationships built over for her 40 years, and and it's all because of CBC. And that's a beautiful thing.
Mm-hmm.
All right, this next question is the tough one everybody struggles with. You can name one or you can name a couple, but can you name somebody that's been a big impact on you in your Christian walk from your experiences at camp? It could be a camper, it could be a staff member, it could be any of those folks.
That is a tough one. I would say I said week 6, Dennis Conner obviously was such a big impact on me. Johnny Melton too. I remember my first class with Johnny. I kind of had that glazed look in my eyes that a lot of young guys do, where it's like, I don't totally understand what's happening right now. But then, it's 10 years later, and I still think back on some of those classes that he taught, and I'm like, oh, so that's what he meant. Like, you have those aha moments. Because he's such a brilliant teacher. I think to David, and I think to Brandon Maxwell with helping lead those service projects. I think to Todd Harris, and how much he's kind of a quiet person, but he brought like such a quiet, fun presence to camp. And he was so funny to talk to if you could get him to kind of open up and loosen up a little bit. So I could just keep naming so many people, but those are some of the main ones I definitely always think too.
Kind of friendships that'll last forever, right?
Yeah.
And you always have people that you can look up to, and like you said, Johnny Melton, Dennis Conner, and all those folks. You kind of get overwhelmed with how much time they've put into Carolina Bible Camp. They spent their life serving there, haven't they?
We think about what Carolina Bible Camp is, and the campus is important because, there's a lot of shared memories there. But what really camp is it's this community. And we have a few pillars of the community that kind of have this shared lore that they pass down to the next staff members and the next campers, and you hear old stories and some of the good times that they've had before I was even born. like that's what camp is, you know, that shared experience, that community that we have.
We used to have during week 3, we'd have Ronnie Ulrey, we'd have Billy Balls, we'd have who else was Wilson Burton, a number of the other older fellows that had been there from day one. And you
Yeah,
sit there in the staff cabin and you listen to those old guys just talk about camp, starting out, where they were at, what they did. And, you know, you're kind of humbled. You're like, here I am sometimes complaining about everything I have to do. And what they had to do was totally harder than
yeah.
what we have to, you know. But, you know, I want to thank you for, you know, you're a young man. You've got a lot of things that can be pulling you. You know, you got a young family and everything, but your devotion to Carolina Bible Camp, that's appreciated. And I think that camp is going to be in good hands as long as we remain focused on God and have hearts like yours to serve. If you have one thing to say to your campers that were going to be here this week, what would that be that you wanted to say to them right now?
I just kind of keep going back to, you know, my first few years of experience at camp and what it kind of meant to my overall trajectory, the friendships that I had. Because growing up, I was homeschooled, which was a great experience in a lot of ways. But Carolina Bible Camp was such a strong, you know, support to, I think, my social development and the friends that I got to have. So that part of, you know, growing up was kind of difficult, but Carolina Bible Camp, I feel like I'm forever indebted to for what it did for me. And that's part of the reason I keep coming back. And I just say to other people, you know, find that way to have Carolina Bible Camp help you along to grow as a person, to self-actualize, and, you know, just overall become a better person. Because it can really work wonders in people's lives. I
Amen.
grew up with kids, and I still see kids today who come from some rough backgrounds and some difficult homes who go through Carolina Bible Camp. And honestly, that's part of the reason they end up going to college. They end up having strong families. It's an outlet for them, you
Mm-hmm.
know. I had campers I grew up going with who would come to camp, and that was such a therapeutic time for them to be able to be around Christians and talk about, you know, some issues maybe back at home in a safe manner, that they could find the resources that they needed. And that's really powerful to see. You know, even if I didn't personally need that, seeing another work in other people's lives was so important. And so people like Chuck Taylor who have that background, you know, to help people in that way, it's so special. And we always could use more people like that.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I think that the kids are going to be in good hands with folks like you who are dedicated and you share your heart and your love for Carolina Bible Camp. I appreciate all the work that you're doing. I know many people appreciate the efforts that you're putting out. So as we sit here and finish up this interview, keep pushing the 49 days of CBC. It's been a blast this first week. We've been able to share a lot with a lot of the staff members like you who have shared their heart, really, you know, the love of Carolina Bible Camp. And here we are starting week 2, and I'm excited to see about the staff. I don't know everybody at week 2, but I know quite a few of these people that we have on our list that we're going to interview this week. So, brother, keep it up. Just love them kids when you're at CBC. I appreciate it, man.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for all you do. And thanks for kicking off the whole 49 days of CBC thing.
It's an honor, brother. It's an honor. We'll talk to you later, man.
All right. See ya.